Hi everyone, and welcome to the training video. If you're watching this, you've been selected to be a timer for our Wild West Showdown meet. And today, we're hoping that you've already either been a timer, a gymnast who's competed, or a coach who understands the meet. But either way, we're gonna go over all of what you do as a timer. Understand, as a timer, you are the only one that's gonna keep this meet on schedule. Meaning that if you don't follow your order and the amount of time allowed per athlete, this meet could run overtime. And then your meet director, which is me, is gonna come over and start freaking out. So what we're gonna talk about first is the number of time allowed per athlete, and then the number of athletes that compete in each event, and how to make this meet run properly. As you can see right now, we set up a mock version of what you'll actually be doing when you're sitting at a table with judges. As you can see, you're sitting at a table with real judges. These are real judges. Hi, I'm Zach. Nice to meet you. What your job is to first is to warm up the athletes, and then second is to compete the athletes. You're gonna sit right next to the judges, so I don't wanna see you sitting here texting on your phone and talking to your friends, but you may use your phone as a source of timing, so just put it on silent. Okay, let's talk times. We have level 2s, level 3s, level 4s, and level 5s competing in this competition. Each athlete is designated a certain number of seconds to warm up. You take that times the number of kids warming up, and then you know how much time to allow for a warm-up. So let's start with level 2. Level 2 gymnasts only get 30 seconds per athlete. So you're gonna get a list, a rotation sheet. You're gonna see how many kids are warming up. You can ask the coaches how many kids are warming up in this group. And then you take, let's say it's 10 girls times 30 seconds, that's 5 minutes. Once the first athlete begins warming up, you start the time. That's the general. Now let's go more specific. Starting on vault. If you're sitting in this chair on vault, the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna get up and find out how many girls are warming up in your level. So again, if it's level 2, it's 30 seconds per athlete. You'll have a rotation sheet in front of you. And that rotation sheet will show you every girl's name and the order they're going to compete in, which is the same group that would warm up. So find out the number of people that are warming up in your group, figure how much time, tell the coaches you have this much time. Your time begins as soon as the first athlete runs down the vault runway, hits the springboard, and goes over the table or the mats. That's considered vaulting. If they're just doing run-bys, don't start the time. So I'm gonna look at my sheet, find out my girls, get my number of people, and then say, okay, you guys have 5 minutes for your 10 athletes, and your time begins now. And then they vault. It's a good courteous, it's a good courtesy to actually say things like 4 minutes left, 3 minutes left, 2 minutes left, 30 seconds, time is up. Once time is up, no athletes can continue warming up. That's when you turn it over to the judges, particularly on vault, turn it over to the judges, and then they judge that group of kids. Once that group is done, you warm up the next group. And again, it's good to have a conversation with your coaches. Know your coaches and what gym they belong to, so you can tell them, coaches, let's go. Your job is to get that warm-up started, finished, and hand over to the judges. The thing we can't control very easily is how long the judges will take to actually judge these kids. So the better you do warming them up efficiently, then we can keep the meet on track. Assuming we're doing well, let's go forward. Let's talk about level 3 on vault. So level 2 on vault is you're running in your springboard and you go over a couple of mats. Level 3 on vault is a particular level 3 vaulting system. It's still mats, it's not a vault. They're gonna run down, hit the board, and go hands down, flat back onto a level 3 vaulting system. Everything else is the same except for one thing. Level 3 athletes get 45 seconds. 45 seconds per athlete. This is a lot harder to figure out. If I'm doing quick math and I have 6 girls times 45 seconds, that's hard. Now I know the answer is 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Why? Because you're gonna have a cheat sheet right here. This cheat sheet will have pretty much everything I'm discussing today, as well as a little conversion for the level 3s, because it is hard to do 45 seconds times 9 girls, which is 6 minutes and 45 seconds. So the most you're gonna warm up in a single half is about 10, okay? Typically it's gonna be 8. If they get to, you can do 14 girls in one group, but we usually don't do it in our meets. So usually it's gonna be about 10 girls, which is 6 minutes and 45, that's not right, that can't be right. That's the same as 9 minutes. I'll fix this later. We'll have a conversion for you. Figure out the number of girls warming up in your half, and then start the time. Level 4 and 5 vault over the vaulting table. So now you're gonna do the same rules about starting when they vault from the board over the table, but now these girls get 1 minute per athlete. Figure out the number of people warming up in that group, times 1 minute, which is the easiest, 10 girls, 10 minutes, so on and so forth, and time starts now. Once again, do a courtesy every few minutes, halfway done. It's important that when I set up my timer to time the meet, I like to set it up so that I'm running it backwards. What does that mean? I'm not counting from 0 up to 10 minutes. I'm counting from 10 minutes down to 0. Why? So it's easy. When a coach says, how much time is left? I don't have to do quick math and go, okay, 4 minutes have been spent. I just look at it and tell them what's on it. Okay, so what I do is I run my timer backwards on my phone. I go total time and then have it count down to 0. It's very simple that way. Okay, now, vault is the easiest. Bars and vault are similar. So when you get to bars, remember the time starts as soon as the athlete gets and touches the event with their hands and swings on it. They can't touch the event at all unless they're actually getting timed. So figure out the number of girls that are warming up, and the same thing applies. Level 2 is 30 seconds, level 3 is 45 seconds, level 4 and 5, 60 seconds. It's important to know how many girls are warming up and which half is warming up. So when you get a group of girls, and let's say it's 16 girls in the group, 16 cannot warm up at once, right? 14 is the max. You're going to take 8 and warm them up, and the second 8 and warm them up. So you'll go warm up, compete, and then that's that group, that squad, we call them, can rotate to the next event. Your job is to get them warmed up, competed, and send them on their way. Okay. Bars have a particular term that you may hear and coaches will ask you, which is called blocking. Can I block my team? So if you have a group and the group has 10 girls warming up, and in that 10, 4 of those girls are from one gym, they ask, can I block together? That means they want to warm up their team inside of that time on their own. And if it's level 4 and 5, it's easy. Okay, I'll give you 4 minutes to warm up your 4 girls. And then they'll warm them up, and then the rest of the group will warm their group up. That's called blocking. They can do that, but you don't want to block 1 or 2 girls. You want to block like at least 3. Ideally, you want to block 4 or more. So that way it's a whole chunk getting warmed up. You never stop the time and warm up for anything. Not bar changes, not people not warming up, nothing. Just let the clock run the entire time. The coach's job is to be efficient. And then once they start competing, you just sit there and wait. Let them compete and then get the next half. The next half finishes, send the squad on their way. The next squad comes to you. Understanding Olympic order is vault, bars, beam, and floor is important. That means if you're on bars, every group is coming from vault to you. And you're sending everybody from bars to beam. Beam is the slowest event, typically. But in our competitions, it usually isn't. And this is why. We have a format that we're going to run this time, which is probably the most efficient of all. It's called a 2-flight warm-up. That means you have 2 events, 2 beams running simultaneously. This will require 2 timers, 1 timer at each table, and then the judges will just move to the other side of the table. Okay? Understand that? So what that means is, let's say a group comes over. Let's say the first 8 girls come over to balance beam. You take them to beam 1. They warm up on beam 1 the whole time until they're ready. Again, number of time allowed per athlete, right? Times the number of girls, and that's the time they get. Warm them up, then they start competing. When they start competing, the second half of those girls that are coming over from bars warm up on the other beam. So the judges are unaffected, they're judging this group, and they're warming up. So when the judges are done, the judges just pivot to the other side of the table, get up and turn around, Judy, turn around, and then judge the other side. Now, why do you need 2 timers for this event? Because a beam timer's job is never done. When you're judging beam, when you're timing beam, you're timing the warm-up and you're timing the competition. Now again, it'll be on your cheat sheet, but pay attention to this. So you warm up your 8 girls. Let's say it's level 4 because it makes it easy. 8 minutes, I warm them up, then they're ready to compete, and it's level 4. Each level has an allotted time for competing as well. So you warm up your girls and your girls start to compete, stay engaged with the judges because you have to time their actual routine. So when the first girl goes and she jumps up, and as soon as she's off the ground and on the beam, you start the time. You time her beam routine based on the level. Level 2s are allowed a total of 35 seconds. Level 3s are allowed a total of 55 seconds. Level 4s are allowed a total of 1 minute and 5 seconds. And level 5s are allowed 1 minute and 10 seconds. This will be on the cheat sheet to remind you. You have 2 jobs. Time the routine. If they fall off, now because they're competing, you stop the time. It doesn't count. Once they remount, start the time again. Keep the time running. You must call out the word warning when they are within 10 seconds of their allotted time. So level 2s, that would be 25 seconds out of the total 35. Level 3s, that would be 45 seconds out of the total 55. Level 4, 55 seconds. Level 5, 1 minute. Call warning. If they must continue the routine, they can't jump down. They finish the routine. If they get past the total time, so let's say for level 5 is 1 minute 10, you say time. Don't stop the clock if they're still on the beam. Don't change anything, but they need to be aware as an athlete to hurry up. So if they get to the time, if they get to the place where you say time, that means they're getting a 1/10 deduction off their score. So you are now affecting that athlete's total score by what you do and what you do here. If you are in a position to where it's a photo finish and they land off the beam for their dismount and you say time, at the same time, stop your clock and hold it for a second, the judges may want to look at it for an official decision if they will take that 1/10 deduction or not. So when you are set up to be on beam 1 or beam 2 as a timer, you're staying on that beam the entire time. You're not moving to the other beam. We'll have 2 timers. The beam 2 timer, of course, will take the other half of the group. We'll do the same thing, warm them up, and then when the judges come over, do the exact same thing and compete them. Then we can send that group on. What this is called is a first half, second half, warm up, compete format. So that if a group of 16 come over, 16 aren't waiting the whole time. First half are warming up on each event, and then competing, and then moving on from there. So the same thing will happen on vault, on bars, and now on beam in the 2 beam format. Floor exercise, different than all the other events because we only have 1 floor, of course. You have floor music, so you don't have to time the routine itself because the music dictates the time. The warm-up is similar. It's first half warm-up. So if I'm the floor timer, I'm going to, again, look at the number of girls warming up, and I'm going to go through and decide, okay, you guys get this much time. I'm going to give them the entire floor for that first half. So let's say it's level 4 and I have 8 girls. Boom, 8 minutes. 8 minutes on the floor, courtesy, half time, 30 seconds, time's up. Off the floor. When the first girl competes, I'm getting ready for the second half to now warm up in between. So this format is called first half warm up, second half warm up in between. How does this work? So if there are a total of 16 girls, the first 8 block and warm up together on the floor. Once beam floor girl number 1 competes and finishes, the next 8 can take the floor. They can take the floor all the way until the judges are done and they tabulate their score. And then once they send it in and they're ready for the next girl, they're going to salute the athlete. You say, clear the floor. When you say clear the floor, all the second half will get off the floor. Now gymnast number 2 in the first half competes. This format, or this, let's just say, this repeats until every one of the 8 girls got 8 warm-ups because the first half had 8 routines. This allows these girls at least as many times as the second half to get, as the first half to get warmed up. Once the last girl, number 8 in the first half, finishes her warm-up, that means that second half is done warming up because they've now had 8 warm-ups. It's the only way to make it fair. That means that group is done. Why? Because then those 8 girls are going to start competing. Once those 8 girls start competing, guess what? If beam is done, it can send you a half number of girls, and those girls can now warm up in between. So in theory, beam floor never stops because a girl's coming in to warm up in between the athletes once the meet starts. So rotation 1 is the only time you would see a block of athletes warming up on the floor. Other than that, they're coming in and warming up in a group on their half from the event. I'm sure I'm putting you to sleep out there. This is important information, so follow along. If beam, for some reason, runs slow, and that means floor is completely done with that squat and they are ready to go and they rotate out to vault, but no one's coming to floor, and finally beam rotates over to floor, what do? What you do is you start over the format. You take the first half of the group, bring them up and block them again as if it was the beginning of the meet. So 16 girls come over, or even whatever, doesn't matter if only the first 8 come over, give them a full block warm-up of 8 minutes, warm them up, then they begin competing, and then hopefully the beam next group will come back in. That's how you reset the meet on floor exercise. The biggest thing I'm going to tell you guys this timers is remember this format. Don't forget how much time is allowed per athlete, and don't be afraid to speak up to the coaches because at this meet, we run the show. Meet director first, Zach is number 1. The judges, of course, are really important because they're going to put the scores out, and the timers are the next big thing. Means you guys have to tell the coaches, get up, get moving, let's go. If you feel like a group is moving too slow and you're done in your event, go over to the event that you're waiting for. So if you're on floor, go over to beam and find out what's going on. See how fast you can get that group of 8 to come over. Because judges don't like sitting around either. Okay, it's very important. This is how we keep the meet running. So just to recap, a couple of important things. Knowing how much time allowed per level is a big deal. Level 2, 30 seconds. Level 3, 45 seconds. Level 4 and 5, 60 seconds or 1 minute. That's how much time is allowed per athlete. Beam particularly, and that's why I always pick my beam timers to be the most responsible and have the most experience because you are now affecting the score is the big deal because you're also timing the actual competition as well. Okay, if you have any questions, and you may or may not, if you have never timed before, I understand you have questions. 2 things. 1, email me. Email me at zach@go2clubchampion.com and ask me if you need any individual training or any questions answered. Number 2, when you arrive for your shift, show up early. I recommend showing up 30 minutes early. That way you can first shadow a person that's already doing it and learn from them, or go through a refresher course with me at the head table.